Hey, Jason Mitchell here, Scheels Pro Staff. You know, as a hunter, one of the things I'm really excited about is just trying to introduce my kids to the outdoors. And one of the things that I wanted to do this year was just get a rifle set up for my oldest son where he's got his own rifle. Before, he's always shot my rifles in the past. And basically, you know, setting up a rifle, whether you're a new hunter or whether you're trying to introduce somebody to the outdoors, it doesn't have to be very intimidating. And a lot of times, you know, just less is more in the sense that it's not like we're going to be doing long range shooting. 95% of the people in the Midwest will never shoot past 300 yards. And so a lot of these rifles are so flat shooting, it's just a matter of pointing and shooting. And so it's just a matter of just setting up a rifle, setting up the basics, bore setting the rifle. We're here with the experts from Scheels. They're going to just kind of walk us through the basic program as far as just getting set up with the necessities to go out and hunt big game with a rifle this fall.
Yeah, so today we've got a Tikka T3X here, just the classic setup for your Midwest whitetail hunter. You know, it's going to be paired with a Bushnell R3, part of their R3 series scopes. Great scope, it's got good focal adjustment, great low light. It also pairs with a good app that they have that's going to show you how to use their the bullet drop compensation hash marks that are in that reticle. It's really going to show you as you adjust your magnification. So it's going to show you exactly where that bullet drop is going to be for your yardage. So you don't have to mess with any tricky turrets or anything like that. It's just going to dial you right in right off the bat.
Yeah, and this is a 6.5 Creedmoor, and so, you know, out to 350 yards, it's a pretty flat shooting rifle anyways, and, you know, sitting in a blind with my kids, you know, I don't want them shooting past that anyways. You know, 250 yards would be a far shot, realistically, for a new or young hunter. And so, you know, again, don't overthink this. You know, these are just the basics for things you need to have. One of the most important things, if you're sitting in a blind with some young hunters, or even if you do a lot of hunting, I think every hunter should have shooting sticks. And so we're just kind of getting set up with the basics. We've got a rifle sling, we've got scope covers, we're setting up a rifle, and we're going to try to get this rifle ready to take out in the field this fall.
So just here, whenever you get a basic Tikka package, they're going to have these little thread protector screws in here. They're just plastic thread protectors just to keep the threads from getting damaged. And this is something that most modern rifles are going to come with nowadays. Some manufacturers are going to send them with the base, some don't. It's kind of down to which one you want to go to. But for the most part, going with a Weaver or a Picatinny style base is pretty common nowadays. And a lot of people used to go with just a regular turn-in style rings. But those actually cause quite a bit of problems for a lot of people, just knowing how to do it correctly. This kind of takes a lot of the error out of it, makes it a lot more simple. So you just want to make sure that these are snug. You don't want to go too tight. It actually is pretty easy to strip out the threads that are in that receiver. So you want to go definitely more than finger tight, but just snug enough so it's not going to move. You don't want those screws to come loose while you're in the field, or your whole scope, everything else is going to be compromised and can move. Kind of get to that point where you feel like it's not going to move, give it just a little bit more, and you're good. If you really want to get down to spec, say somewhere around 30 inch-pounds is good. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to level the gun. So we want to make sure everything is level. So right now we're just leveling the receiver. Obviously that's where the scope's going to sit, so that level can't sit there the whole time. So we use this leveling tool here. We're going to put one on the receiver, get it level. Then we're going to put this one on the barrel. So this one on the barrel, as we're mounting the scope, is just going to stay here. And that's going to ensure that no matter which way we have the scope or the gun orientated while we're doing the mounting process, it ensures that it's going to stay level the whole time. So here all I'm doing is just making sure that wherever I'm going to put the scope, where it's mounted, we're going to have good eye relief for whoever's going to be shooting it. There's kind of a general rule of thumb when doing that. If you're doing this at home or anywhere else, having that magnification ring just above where the bolt's going to sit inside the gun is pretty much right on every time. So that's a good rule of thumb to use for that eye relief whenever you're looking through that scope. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use that same level we used before on the receiver. We're just going to put it on top of the scope. And what we're going to do there is we're just going to make sure that the scope is level. And you just want to make sure that the front level is still holding the gun level. Because the last thing you want to do is have your gun level, your scope off level, because then you're not going to hold your gun straight whenever you're shooting. So this ensures that the scope is level to the gun, so no matter which way you're holding the gun, it's going to be straight, no matter the situation. Once you have that, you'll just leave that on there as you tighten down all those screws. And then what I'm doing here is just using a torque. We're going to torque these down to 18 inch-pounds. Whenever you're torquing down screws on any optic, you want to make sure that you go to spec of whatever the rings call for. Different manufacturers call for different torque specs, but you want to make sure you pretty much never go past 20 inch-pounds. 20 inch-pounds in the industry is what we call critical torque, and that's when you can actually bend the tube of your scope and then it won't work properly, and that's when you get a lot of those weird shots whenever you're sighting in, where you might have one that hits the bullseye and then you turn just a little bit and then all of a sudden you have one 6 inches to the left. And it's nothing that the shooter's doing, it's just an improperly mounted scope. So now that we have the scope on there and it's mounted up, we want to make sure that it's bore sighted. So how we're going to do that, we're going to take the turret caps off because we have to adjust that turret to be true. So there are various tools used to bore sight. This is the one that we use here at Scheels. Basically, you just get it aligned center with the barrel. It's just a magnet, sticks right there on the end, and then shoots a laser. One thing to keep in mind whenever you're bore sighting is that lasers are linear. They're going to shoot in a straight line. Bullets tend to not do that so much. They have rise and fall. Here at Scheels, we bore sight to about 40 yards. That's going to get you on paper at 50. We suggest you start at 50 and just work your way out from there. That way it takes as little shots as possible when you're on the range to get that thing sighted in. So here on the bore sighter, all we're doing is looking through the scope. We have that laser down there, and we're just going to be turning these turrets until the crosshairs line up with that red dot. And you just want to put these turret caps back on to make sure nothing gets bumped, everything stays right in place. So the last thing you want to do is get it sighted in and then bump those turrets, and then it's all out of whack again.
Yeah, and typically, like with a 6.5 Creedmoor, which in my opinion, a 6.5 Creedmoor, 243, those are excellent rifle calibers for young kids, for women, for people that maybe haven't shot a lot, because there's not a lot of recoil. And so a couple of things, like when I've taught my own kids how to shoot, one thing that I've done as far as just taking care of some of that flinching is have them actually dry fire without a bullet in the chamber and just see if they flinch. And then that kind of calms you down and settles you down, so that way you can get a nice group.
I would say a 3-inch group would be great for any new shooter.
Yeah.
They advertise that these guns have, a sub MOA group, which is going to be about a 1-inch group at 100 yards. But not everyone's going to be that super steady shooter. There's some human element to it. So a 3-inch group is going to be, more than enough. When we talk about, a kill zone on any sort of a hunting animal, you have generally about an 8-inch target. So as long as you're in those tolerances, you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen as far as getting new hunters is just the flinching. That's easy to do even if you're an experienced hunter. And so, I like to shoot small rifles, light rifles without a lot of recoil, and just that way, especially with kids, they're not scared of the rifle.
So when we talk about, a new package for new hunters, one of the best things that you can get them is just a good pair of optics to kind of look out whether they're in a blind, tree stand, whatever situation there is. Just being able to either tag along with a buddy or when they're by themselves, something to be able to look at what they want to see that has good optical quality. So we've got the Bushnell R5, R series binoculars, great entry-level price point binoculars. They're going to be in a 10x42, which is probably the all-around best setup for binoculars to have. They have a multi-coating on the lenses, which is going to cut down on that fog-proof or scratch-proof, any of that stuff. It's going to prevent all that. It also comes with a really nice harness that not all binoculars come with nowadays, and it keeps all that weight off your neck. It keeps it more centrally localized, so it cuts down on that fatigue. But just really great with low light, and typically that's when you're going to see those game animals when you're hunting is first light or last light. That's when they come out. So being able to have that higher light transmission through those optics really helps.
So now that we've got the rifle bore sight, it's time to zero the rifle in on a range. It's pretty easy to do. Just want to have everything stable and controlled. And for young hunters and for new hunters, if you're a mentor or if you're a parent, I recommend just getting the rifle zeroed in and then letting the new or beginning hunter shoot the rifle just so they can get confidence with it. But if you don't have a mentor and if you have a range, it's something that anybody can do. We're just going to walk you through how to zero in a rifle. We're just shooting 130 grain terminal ascent, and what we're going to start out doing is we're just going to fire 2 or 3 rounds and just see what our grouping is, and then figure out where we got to move that grouping to get on bullseye. Okay, right now I'm above the bullseye and a little bit to the right. I'm going to fire again here. All right, so both those bullets are about 1 inch apart, but they're about 3-4 inches high. And so you see here, I'm just gonna, there's an arrow that says up, I'm just gonna click it down. I'm not gonna worry about my left or right so much now, I'm just gonna try to get my elevation. Biggest thing is if you're using sandbags, whatever rests, is don't let your barrel rest on anything because that'll affect the harmonics of the barrel. And so we adjusted our elevation here on our turret. We're going to take another shot here and see where we're at. So right now I'm just a touch above bullseye. I want to keep lowering it down. There we go, 6 clicks. Okay. Okay, that was right on the bullseye. So we're starting to get pretty close here. We had to lower it. Our left or right is fairly consistent. Huh. All right, let's go look at that. Yeah, so right here, those are my last 2 bullets there. I mean, that's definitely good enough to kill a deer. I mean, you see here where we just kind of walked it down. I feel comfortable with that. And so that's at 100 yards. And realistically, I'd have to look up the ballistics again, but I want to say between 100 and 200 yards, you're looking at, maybe 2 inches, 2.5 inches of drop on this particular caliber. And if you want to know your ballistics, you can look all that stuff up online. There's all kinds of apps that'll show you your caliber, grain bullet, as far as what kind of drop you're going to have. But, you know, again, for beginning hunters, youth hunters, we're going to keep this pretty simple. We're going to try to get a close shot, make a good shot on an animal that's standing, you know, preferably less than 200 yards. And so, and then the other thing we're going to try to do is make sure that we have a good rest and everything is set up for that hunter. And so, exciting, always great and exciting to get more people outdoors.